This off-grid living is romanticised, it's way overrated, and it is not all it's cracked out to be. Those were the words of my friend who was on the phone to me as she was doing a house sit in an off-grid property down in the Algarve. But ironically, funny enough, I too was on a house sit in central Portugal, also on an off-grid property. Now, we had both had the same weather where we had had a week of cloud. Both of us were on solar and our battery power had run out, and we'd both run out of solar power, stored battery power. And she was miserable. She was cold, she was in the dark, she was smelly because she hadn't had water for days, she had no heating, and she was miserable and fed up. However, I had heating, I had light, the fridge freezer was still going, the modem was still going, so I still had Wi-Fi, I was warm. So clearly, off-grid living was not to blame for her misery. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about this little experience of our two polar opposite off-grid living experiences, because it is something I always think that as soon as you mention off-grid, people think substandard, they think you're missing out, and it's all about compost toilets and doing without luxuries and certain things. So if you don't know, I have been doing a little bit of off-grid research and finding out and looking at people's different off-grid setups. So we've been to Quinta Tranquila, which is a couple living in a dome off-grid. We have been to Bella Pedra farm, where my friend Cindy lives off-grid and has a fully blown farm with loads of animals. And we've got some more coming up. We've been talking tiger worm toilets, obviously solar, everybody's on solar. We've got a 12-volt system coming up. We talk biodigestible toilets. It's all very interesting. And I really like finding out in real life how people are living off-grid. And so back to my story of the two house sits. So it just perfectly demonstrates my point that I keep making whenever I talk to people about off-grid. So to me, there are certain things that you must put in place and ways to set up. So let's go through her misery. Obviously, she was in the dark. I mean, one thing you have to do with off-grid is you've kind of like got to be a bit prepared and have things like torches charged up, maybe candles, maybe some camping lights. Like Cindy mentioned on her video about her off-grid setup, she couldn't do without the, like the power packs that can charge from solar and obviously store energy. So if you've got those, you can plug lamps in, you can plug, she has one always on standby because she works internationally, which means she could be working in the, middle of the night because she works across different time zones. So she always wants something on standby to plug her modem in, and a light, obviously, she's doing online workshops in the middle of the night. So you've got to work with it when you're living off grid. So back to my friend, to have torches, chargeable lights, candles, whatever on the ready, that straight away eliminates being in the dark. The cold. So she obviously had a very good solar system, good capacity, which meant she was in the Algarve, but it does get cold, contrary to what people believe. Whenever I mention being cold, people think the answer is just to move down south. Well, there you go. You only have to look at the comments in my videos when I talk about being cold, and there are plenty of people that are cold in the Algarve. So she had this good solar system, but it did mean that they over-relied on it. And didn't worry about using electric heating because they had plenty of power. But when that power has the storage of the power has completely run out, well then you've got no electric heating. For me, living off grid, I would always have an alternative. Everybody that I spoke to and visited so far, everybody has a log burner. That's what they use anyway, but even if it wasn't your main source, it's a great backup. You can get small ones, big ones, you can get ones designed for tents and tiny homes. So you can always get a log burner. I've been looking at, for the tiny home, even the possibility of having a diesel heater, something, but you cannot rely on one source if you feel like heating is something you still want to have when you've run out of power. It's not necessarily essential just for a few days or even a few weeks, but it's something to consider if you think that's something that you don't want to be without. Now, my big one is water. So she had no water because, like many houses, I've been in houses where this has been the case. When you demand water, it is pumped. The pump kicks in and gives you water. The problem with that is the minute you haven't got power, you have no water. And I don't even think you need to be off grid for this not to be a good idea. I was in a house once where next door, or they had another property next door or on the land, and they was doing renovations, which meant the builders were there while I was house sitting. But the builders were using heavy power tools. This isn't on the grid house, by the way. The builders were using heavy power tools, so they kept tripping the electric. So obviously, although they was there to immediately turn it back on, it wasn't always obvious when they had tripped it. And every now and again, I'd go to turn the tap on and I didn't have water because the builders had tripped the power and my water was pump on demand, which I don't think is ever a good idea personally. When we had the big power outage that we had for the whole day that affected Portugal and Spain, I had a friend that had no water all day. Neither did any of her neighbours because she has a big kinter that she's chopped up into apartments. So none of them had any water because the water is pump on demand. So for me, I would always have my water pumped up to a tank and then gravity fed. That way, if you've got no power, you can easily have water for days, even if you're without power for days. I just think that makes, for a stress-free way of living. Personally, I don't know, let me know what you think, but I am absolutely gravity fed all the way is on my list for my setup. So yeah, she had no water, no heating because she was relying on plug-in heaters. And you may think like, why would you rely on your solar for your plug-in heater? Don't forget here, often it's lovely and sunny outside when you've got winter sun, but inside is still very cold. So if you've got solar, it's just nice free heating. And if you've got a good battery storage, even when there's no sun, you have still got plenty of power for your heater. But for me, log burner all the way when you're off grid. So like I said, I was in the same position. My solar and battery storage had run out, but I had so first of all, as I said, there was a fridge freezer that needed to be kept going. I had a generator. I mean, I don't know that I know anybody that doesn't have a petrol or diesel generator as a standby when they've got solar. So obviously I had that. Obviously you make sure you've got diesel, obviously you make sure, or petrol, whatever it is, obviously you make sure you've got a spare jerry can of fuel. So really simple, you just run the generator for a few hours and it charges up your batteries again. So obviously you can keep the Wi-Fi going, you can keep the fridge freezer going, any other electrical appliances, and it just makes for an easier life. I always also had great big like fluorescent tube lighting torches. I mean, you could use them as lighting in the house. So yeah, same situation, but the simple solution is have things charged up and ready. Oh, also, I do believe that she didn't have... See, I had a gas cooker. That's another thing I would have. I would always have gas. I know a lot of people don't, but for me, I will always have gas as well. Because that way, if you've got a gas cooker, a gas hob, you can always heat up water on the hob. You can still cook. You can still make a cup of tea. So I just think it's good to have, you know, different options. So obviously, once with the generator, that's it. It just charges up your battery and you're back to where you was. But even before putting on the generator and recharging the batteries, I still had my water because it was gravity fed. I still had light because I had my nice big torches already and charged up. And I did actually have with me, because I have a Bluetti, Power Oak Bluetti, I had that with me as well as extra. So if ever I needed it, I had that. So basically, it's just about obviously being prepared, and you've got to work with, you know, with the elements when you're off grid. And it's just all about the setup as far as I'm concerned. It's all about how you set up in the first place, which is why I have been going around and talking to people, and it's fascinating. I'm really enjoying it. And one of the questions I do ask them, is there anything that you regret or that you would do differently, or that you know now that you didn't know before? But I'm finding it out all from them so I can learn from everybody's mistakes. And I mean, a couple of things I think I have learned, I know that I've learned so far, is one thing I really didn't consider is looking at your appliances and equipment and see what works better with solar. I never even would have thought of that. I just thought an appliance was an appliance, and apart from making sure it's A+ rated. Some types of equipment do work better with solar. I didn't know that, so that's something I'll be looking at. Another thing is grey waste. I thought grey waste was quite simple, but I've had, it's been interesting what people have said about their grey waste. I've heard conflicting things about composting toilets and the compost itself, and how long you have to go before you can use it, which is very interesting. But one of the people I spoke to and visited for my off-grid series is really experienced in that. She has helped in, I think it's in Africa, she's helped do workshops and set up people's composting toilet systems. She has a free course on Udemy. So yeah, she really knows her toilet and poop stuff. So yeah, so we got some more coming up. We talk biodigesters, 12-volt systems, and yeah, it's all good stuff. But if you have got any experience and tips and, you know, things that you thought, well, I never knew that, do share. So I think the next video will have another off-grid visit coming up. But yeah, I think that's it. I just wanted to tell you about that experience because it really was hilarious the way she just said, she was really upset and said, you know, it's romanticised, it's not what it's made out to be. People are making it out to be, you know, what it isn't. But it was like, no. It really is your setup and your system. And the person that put that together and designed that really did not do it well. So yeah, anyway, I'm waffling on. I'll catch you on the next one.